All right, hi folks, this is Larry Mussolino. I'm recording a video for MM150, the Unit 1 graded practice, and I want to help you get started in some of the homework problems that you're going to be working on. So here's a typical MyMathLab graded practice problem. And first thing I want to show you is that you can jump ahead from problem to problem by clicking on this down arrow here, and it allows you to jump around and work the questions in any order you want. So you don't have to necessarily work these in order from question 1 to the last question. You can jump around and work in any order you want. The other thing I want to show you is anytime you need help, click on this button, this question help button, because you'll notice there are some good help resources here. Help Me Solve This will show you how to solve this exact problem step by step. Then MyMathLab will give you a new similar problem to work on. If you click on View an Example, that'll give you a similar problem to the one you're working on and show you step-by-step guided solutions. If you click on Textbook, that'll open up the ebook to the section where this topic is discussed. If you click Ask My Instructor, that allows you to send an email to your instructor, and the instructor will have a link to the problem you're working on. So please feel free to use these help resources. There's no penalties at all for using any of these help links, so please use them anytime you want. All right, let's take a look at this example. This says, find the next number in the sequence. And so what they're giving me here is a series of numbers, and they're asking me really what number comes next. And that's the number I want to type into this answer box. Now, one thing I want to mention to you is when you click your mouse in that answer box, so let me click it again. If I click my mouse in the answer box, notice this menu appears on the bottom here, and this allows you to enter special math symbols. So for example, if you have to enter a fraction, you can use any one of these special math symbols. All right, well, here's the question. It says, find the next number in the sequence. So what I'm looking for is some kind of a pattern that will help me deduce what is the next number in this pattern. All right, well, let me see if I can see what's going on here. It's a 9, a 16, a 25, a 36. Now, I could try to see if there's some number that if I add to 9, I get to 16, and that number is 7. And then if I add 7 to 16, it would get me 23. So adding a certain number to each one of these values doesn't work. That's not the pattern here. What I am noticing, though, is if I was to think of this first number as 3 times 3, 3 times 3 is 9. Well, the second number, 16, is 4 times 4. And the next number, 25, is 5 times 5. So I think you can see the pattern here. It's really taking a number times itself. 36 is 6 times 6. So the next number in the series should be 7 times 7. And 7 times 7 is 49. So all I have to do is click my mouse in this answer box, 49. Then you click down here, check answer. And MyMathLab tells you if your answer is correct or not. All right, let's go to the next question. So this question is asking you to examine a pattern. And let's take a look at this one. Let me scroll down a little so we could see it. All right, so they're showing me a pattern here of these dots. They're called triangular numbers. And they're asking me what would be the next triangular numbers here. Well, again, let me see if I can figure out a pattern here. Well, what I'm noticing is as I build these triangles, these images, every time I create a new triangle like this, I'm adding a new row onto the bottom of the triangle. So notice every time I build one of these new triangles, there's a new row on the bottom, right? Because you might notice if I was to circle this triangle right here, this triangle has been reproduced here. Let me circle this whole triangle here. That triangle has been reproduced in this blue triangle, but then the row that's circled in red is added on the bottom. So let me notice that on the bottom, This row has 2 dots. This row has 3. This row has 4. This row has 5. And this row has 6. So when I get to the next row, it's going to have 7. But then it'll still have this triangle of 21 on top. So it looks like the next number is going to be a 28. All right, then if I was to build another triangle, this last row would have 8 dots on it. But I would still have the triangle on top with 28. So it looks like this new triangle here would be 36. Okay, so the next 2 triangular numbers here looks like it's going to be 28 and 36. And the way I came up with this was really just carefully scrutinizing the pattern and what changes occur as I go from one diagram to the next. All right, let's look at another example. How about this one? It says here, what's the next figure in this pattern? Well, again, I'm just going to try to see what's changing as I go from one figure to the next. Well, I could see the first figure here is 1 circle. Then the next figure is 2 circles. Then there's 3 circles. So I could see the next pattern should have 4 circles. And the only diagram that has 4 circles looks like, if you carefully check out diagram A, that has 4 circles in it. All right, let me do maybe one more example here from this homework, again, just to help you get started. So one other concept in Unit 1 is called estimating. And so what they'd like me to do here is take each one of these numbers and round to the nearest 10, then add up the results. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Let me write these numbers down. So here are the numbers they're giving me. 302, 53.4, 969.3, and finally 76.2. So what they're asking me to do is round each one of these numbers to the nearest 10. All right, well, let me remind you how to do this rounding. The first thing I'm going to do is circle the numbers in the tens position. So these numbers that I'm circling are in the tens position. These are the numbers I want to round. Now, to do the rounding means either take the number that I circled in red and increase it by 1, that's rounding up, or just leave it as is, that's rounding down. How do I know whether to round up or round down? Well, the key is to look over one position. So you look over to the right 1 digit. If that number to the right is a 4 or lower, you round down. But if that number to the right is 5 or larger, you round up. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this rounding. So I'm going to put the rounded answers here. Okay, so let's take 302. I want to round this number 0. I have to look over to the right to make my decision whether I'm going to round the 0 up or leave it alone. But the number to the right is a 2. So if that number is a 2, that means round down. That means leave that 0 alone as is. Now, when you round a certain position, you make all the other positions to the right be zeros. So 302 is going to round to 300. All right, let me do the same with 53. I want to round this 5. I have to look over to the right, and I'm seeing a 3. Well, that tells me to leave the 5 as is. So I'm going to round this as 50. Let me go to this example. I want to round the 6. Here, I'm going to look over to the right to make my decision, and that number's a 9. That means round the 6 up. So it's going to be a 7. So this is going to be 970. Remember, once you round a position, all the other digits to the right become zeros. And finally, let's do this last one. I want to round the 7. To do that, I look over to the right. I see a 6. But when that number is 5 or greater, that tells me to round this up. So the 7 gets bumped up to an 8, so this is going to round to 80. And they want me to come up with the sum. So now I'm just going to add these numbers together. Let's see, it looks like, if I'm doing this correctly, this looks like 1,400 if I'm adding these numbers correctly. By the way, you might notice in front of this answer box are these wavy, looks like kind of a wavy equal sign. Well, that means approximately. So that symbol is a way to say approximately, and that's indicating that our answer is an estimate. It's not an exact answer, it's just an approximate answer. So the answer here would be 1,400. And that should do it for this example, okay? All right, folks, hope this is helpful as you're getting started in the Unit 1 graded practice.